I'm talking to the woman who has watched her male colleagues walk into rooms with a confidence that you can't locate inside yourself. You weren't raised the same. And not because you're not more capable, you might be. Because nobody ever handed you the same story or handed them the same story that you've gotten, you navigate the world and the work world differently. Once she connected the voice inside of her to the actual human being it had come from, the voice lost something. And that authority it had been over her, it lost the ability to be that way. It lost the ability to present itself as truth, because now she could see it was just a person that she was believing, a person who was not in the room anymore. Whose voice is my inner critic? Sit with that question. Let the answer come. And when it does,
enough already! You've worked harder, stayed later, smiled through it, you've shrunk yourself, you've overexplained yourself, you've apologized for yourself, and still walked away feeling like you were the problem. You weren't. You've been playing by rules that were never designed for you, and you're exhausted. You're done. I'm Coach Mo Fall, and this is Enough Already, the podcast for women who are done performing and ready to heal, reclaim, and redefine what their life actually gets to look like when you step into your real power. No more shrinking, no more trying to be less or more, or whatever they need you to be. We're going to name exactly what happened, get free from it, and figure out what comes next. This is your space. This is your moment. Women, we are rising. Let's get into it.
she had been making herself smaller, not because she wanted to, because there was a voice. And the voice had an opinion about everything, her ideas, her worth, her right to take up space. We did an exercise together, and I asked her to write down the name of the person whose voice sounded like that. And she went quiet for a bit, and then she wrote the name down, and everything changed. And this is what we are doing today. So welcome back. This is Enough Already, and I'm Coach Mo, and I want to start today with something I say to every single client I work with, usually in the first few sessions, often before we have touched a single piece of strategy. You have a gremlin, and sometimes I even enlarge it to say, you got a dragon. This is not a metaphorical one, not a cute one, not a real specific, persistent voice that lives inside of you. This persistent voice is infecting everything, your professional life, your personal life, for longer than you realize, because you've normalized it. A voice that has an opinion about every move you make, every ask you consider, every room you think about walking into, frankly, even the way you're dressed. And here's the thing about your gremlin that most people do not tell you. It never was your voice. It was handed to you by someone at some point in your life when you were absorbing messages about who you were, what you were worth, how much space you were allowed to take up, and took it in. You took that space, those messages, that template, that programming, you took it all in. And when we're young and vulnerable, or in a culture that keeps telling us the same thing, and somewhere along the line, the way it started sounding was like you were the problem. But it is not you. And today we're going to find it, name it, and give it the performance review it has long deserved. Because I promise you, once you see this voice clearly, once you know whose it actually is, it loses power in a way that nothing else produces. This is the work. Let's get into it. Let me describe your gremlin to you because I want you to recognize it. Your gremlin is that voice that speaks up right at the moment you're about to do something that matters. You're about to send the email asking for the meeting with the senior leader, and then gremlin says, "Who do you think you are?" You're about to put your name forward for that stretch assignment, and the gremlin says, "You're not ready for that." You're sitting in a meeting with an idea that is better than anything anyone else has said, and the gremlin says, "What if you're wrong? What if they think you're too much? What if they laugh?" And so you don't send the email, you don't put your name forward, you sit on the idea until someone else says it, and you watch them get the credit. And then the gremlin says, "See, you should have spoken up. What's wrong with you?" The gremlin wins either way. That's what gremlins do. Now, here is what I need you to understand about this voice, because this is where most inner critic conversations stop and where I want to go further in. The gremlin is not a random noise. It's not just this anxiety or imposter syndrome or a bad day. It's a specific constructed narrative that was built from specific experiences and specific messages delivered by specific people at specific moments in your life. It has a source. And it has been repeating over and over again so that you think that this is the way life is. And when you find the source, when you trace the voice all the way back to where it actually came from, something fundamental shifts. Because a voice that belongs to someone else cannot tell you the truth about yourself. It can only tell you what that person believed or what they feared or what they needed you to be. And this is not data. This is their story and you've been running your career and your life from inside this story, this thing that has been packed inside of you. I want to tell you about a woman I'll call Christine. Christine came to me carrying something she could not fully articulate yet. She was burnt out, genuinely, deeply burnt in the way that happens when a talented woman has been running on fumes for so long. She started to forget what it felt like to have energy that wasn't being spent managing other people's perceptions of her. That's really a high level of stress performance burnout. And in the middle of that burnout, something else was happening. Christine had found making herself less than. And she sort of just figured it was part of what happens when you get at a certain number of years in a company. Not in obvious ways. She was still showing up, delivering, doing all the things. But internally, she had started telling herself a story about another woman in her professional life, a story that cast Christine as somehow less than, somehow less worthy, somehow not quite enough in comparison. And when we started unpacking that story, what became clear was that Christine had not generated this on her own. It had grown in the soil of the burnout, in the muddy, mucky glasses that chronic stress puts on everything. I often call the soul work Windex for the soul. Need to clean it off. But here, for Christine, the seed of it had been planted somewhere else entirely by someone at some point before the burnt out, before her corporate career, before all of it. And I want to use the language that I usually use when I'm talking to clients because we start telling ourselves stories, narratives to make sense of a world that feels unfriendly, especially to women rising up and being bolder. And when the world has been feeling unfriendly for a long time, these stories, these gremlins take root in a way that feels like truth. The statistics are all over the place. The statistics are out there. Women just not feeling supported, not feeling guided, not feeling let in. And this gremlin for Christine had been with her for a long time. It just had a costume aura about it. So we did this exercise together. It's part of the deeper work I take my clients through. Meditation, a specific piece of the barrier and forgiveness work. And at the center of it, deceptively simple instruction. So I want you to write down the name of the person whose voice you hear when this happens to you. And not the feeling, not the theme, not the general sense of being enough, the person. And when I asked Christine to do this, she went quiet and then she wrote the name down. And she told me afterwards she was blown away because once she saw the name on the page, once she connected the voice inside of her, her head, her heart, to the actual human being it had come from, the voice lost something. And that authority it had been over her. It lost the ability to be that way. It lost the ability to present itself as truth because now she could see it was just a person that she was believing, a person with their wounds, their limitations, their reasons for saying what they said when they said it, a person who was not in the room anymore, a person who had no business running her career. And that's the moment the gremlin stops being your inner voice because what it always was someone else's opinion that overstayed its welcome. And we allowed that because the information that we get from the outside world tends to match that voice and that template. So when the voices and the feedback from the external world matches our programming, we go truth, we go truth, we go truth. As a human being, we are a pattern making, matching psychology. We want to match the world with our truths, and we will fight to keep that going because that's how we make sense of the world. So now I want to give you a framework that I use with clients like Christine after the naming is done, because the naming is the beginning, not the end. And once you know whose voice it is, you're in a position to evaluate it. And this is my favorite part of the work because we are going to treat the gremlin in a way a manager would treat an underperforming employee. How about that? We're going to give it a performance review. So think about what a real performance review looks like: results, accuracy, reliability, whether this person is actually helping the organization move forward or whether they're creating drag. Let's apply that to your gremlin. So, on the results category, what has your gremlin actually produced for you? When you listened to it, when you didn't send the email, didn't put your name forward, didn't say the thing in the meeting, what was the outcome? Yeah. Did listening to your gremlin ever actually make your career better? Or did it consistently keep you smaller than you were built to be? Write down 3 times you listened to your gremlin and what happened as a result, not what you felt, what actually happened. And if you want to pause and get that done, go right ahead and do that. I'll tell you what most of my clients find when they do this. The gremlin has a terrible track record. It has never once produced a result that moved them forward. Every time they listen to it, you as well, you stay still or you move backward. The gremlin is not protecting you, it's costing you. You see, as a grown adult human being, you no longer need these false narratives to keep you protected. Oftentimes, this voice was coming from someone in your formative years, a parent, or maybe early in your career. I had a lot of pushback early in my career as a nurse. I was diminished for knowing things. I was diminished for getting along with certain people on the team who didn't have the same skin color. And those who did have the same skin color got envious, jealous. They marginalized me, sort of nicknamed me. And those voices stayed with me for a long time without my knowledge. And so I want to share with you also that every time I listened to that, I did not move forward. I had to keep listening to me, to my soul, to my truth. But you know what happened early in my career? It was too hard. It was too much energy. So I just capitulated to the voice, to the voices, to the programming. I was early in my career and I thought maybe they're right. Maybe I shouldn't be as friendly. Maybe I shouldn't be as gregarious and generous and friendly. Maybe I should play the game so that I'm in the right lane for the role I had. And maybe I should bow down a little bit more to authority figures rather than talking to them as humans. So the results weren't good. And at some point, I decided, no, I'm going to take risks. I'm going to be me. But you know what? Every time I stepped into that, I got the same pushback. So it wasn't until my breast cancer that I realized that the results of that gremlin stuff, all that programming, was taking me down a path of no results and feeling crappy about myself. So now let's look at the accuracy. How often is your gremlin actually right? I don't know about you, but when it says you're not ready, is that true? When it says they think you're too much, has that actually happened? Or is that prediction the gremlin is making based on old data from a completely different environment? I was told I was too much numerous times in my career, and more than half the time I believed it because it was always when I was putting myself further out there, asking for the promotion, speaking up in a meeting when I'm like, oh, I have the perfect answer for that. And so when you're continuing to get pushback, your human psychology really does a game on you because you're trying to protect yourself from getting hurt again. So naturally, you're going to run that program. And the gremlins usually are running on data that's decades old, making predictions about your current workplace, perhaps even a job trauma from, decades ago. And if it matches some of the experiences in your childhood or your first job, like I mentioned, or a manager you had 15 years ago, a parent who meant well but got it wrong, perhaps the tribe you were raised in didn't succeed to the level that you're succeeding right now. So you feel that if you really push yourself out there, you're going to lose your tribe. You're going to feel alienated from your family. And this is confidence that is trying to protect you. And so it reels itself back. And it happens often, but it's usually not accurate for today's current life situation. So you have to look at results, accuracy, and then how about reliability? So if you had an employee who wasn't reliable, like if you asked them to do something and half the time they did it and half the time they didn't, I think you might have them a performance improvement plan and you might be thinking 30 days from now they got to move on. So reliability, does your gremlin show up consistently or does it show up strategically or inconveniently? Right when the stakes are highest, right when you're about to, you know, do something important, do something that is going to help your career. I mean, your gremlin wouldn't survive this performance review, not even close. And yet it's been running your career without you ever being evaluated. So that ends today. So hopefully your gremlin did not pass this performance review with either the results, the accuracy, or the reliability. Now, I want to give you something practical because naming the work and the performance review are powerful, and the gremlin will probably still show up tomorrow because it takes a while to wear this off. Probably at the worst possible moment, because once you start like taking the energy down, it's going to want to show back up again, convincing you that you're wrong to get it out of the way. So you got to recognize it by name and not, I'm feeling anxious, not, I have imposter syndrome again, not, this is my gremlin, but the voice that belongs to someone who's not in the room with you, that is not you, that single act of recognition of separating the voice from your own identity, that creates enough distance so that you're not confusing yourself and your identity with the gremlin. So I can name several people in my career who gave me that programming. And I can also say that it matched my upbringing because I was raised in the era still where girls didn't do certain things. And that was not comfortable to me because I wanted to do those things. I wanted to play baseball. I wanted to run fast. I wanted to climb trees higher than all the boys. I wanted to show myself and then, of course, my parents what I could do, what I was capable of. And this is a natural expression of our soul. So I'm not blaming my parents per se, but their programming got downloaded onto me. And then society reinforced that. And then I was sort of okay going through school from time to time, but, sometimes there was confusions in the social scene of that. I got good grades. I was National Honor Society. Thank you very much. I got elected for class officers and things like that along the way because I always just wanted to express myself fully. And then early in my career, I got those experiences of being, well, who do you think you are type of thing. And so I want to just say this. I recognized decades ago, because I've been doing this work so deeply for many 40 plus years, that those voices were those other people's and they never belonged to me, but they seemed more powerful than my own desires. And I let them. So if you have a person or a memory, and I can literally think of episodes in my career and people in my career that reinforced that programming, also almost like it was like sealing it in. And I want you to name that person to yourself. You don't have to tell anyone about it. And I want you to separate yourself from that. And then what I want you to do is just swat it. Like, stop it. Enough already. Literally. And if you were in my 12-week program for the past 5 or 6 years, we actually gave gremlin swatters to our new clients as part of their welcome package. And those gremlin swatters were helpful because in the coaching sessions, I would sometimes say to someone, I'd say, Mary, that's a gremlin. Get out your swatter and let's go. Psh, 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 psh. And oftentimes it helps us to do something physical when we're dealing with something spiritual or psychological because our body can understand it. When we literally make a physical gesture, we do an interrupt on a mental pattern. So whether you have a swatter or not, you can always use your hands to say, "Get out, stop, 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 stop." So name it, dismiss it, swat it away. And you don't have to argue with it. Just swat it away because your gremlin loves getting an argument because it thinks it's going to win because it has often, so often won. So swat it away and let's say goodbye. See you later. You're not mine. Next. And then step 3 is replace it with evidence. So the gremlin speaks in assertions and the gremlin projects future disasters. So you can project a future success. You can project a way that you want to be. You can say, you know what? I might have some of that fear still lingering, but I'm going to be me Not like be me, I don't care what you think, but be me as in, this is who I really am. So I'm going to be who I really am. And I'm not going to let that gremlin, even though it keeps chattering and I swat it away and it keeps sort of coming back. I'm just going to be me. I'm going to answer the call to the meeting. I'm going to answer the assignment. I'm going to put my hat in the ring for the promotion. I'm going to submit for that new job because I know now, this is you saying that, I know now that there's a narrative running in ways that can be either disempowering or empowering. So from this point on, swat that gremlin away and give yourself another narrative that you're going to have better results when you step forward. You're going to have better evidence, you're going to have better accuracy and reliability. Your record, your performance review for yourself is going to be better when you eliminate that gremlin. So, one specific thing that you have done that contradicts the evidence of the gremlin, you need to solidify, make it a fact, make it a true knowing. So, you could say, I am always thoughtful and smart. And if you say that several times and you take it in and you keep swatting your gremlin away, you can live that truth. Now, as a client, you would do deeper work with me, but that's okay. Just start it with this because facts beat assertions all the time. And that's how you swat a gremlin. You make them irrelevant. Isn't that what you do when you break up with someone? You may not have done that for a while. You may be happily married or happily with someone. So here's the deeper work. I want to say something here that I think is important, but I want this episode to sound like the gremlin is a simple problem with a simple fix, but it isn't always. But now you at least understand it. You can do an autopsy. You can give it a performance review. You can name it. You can swat it out of the way, and then you can replace it with a powerful I am statement. Naming it and doing the review and the swatting are tools, and they work. And Christine, my client, used them and they changed something real for her. But the deepest layer of this work, the barrier and the forgiveness work, because you got to both forgive you and the person who did that. This is the place where you actually look at the person whose voice it is and you process what happened and you release the hold. And that is not a podcast exercise, that's coaching. That is the work we do inside the room, in the coaching program, in the deep dives, and the sessions where you have the space to go all the way in and the not just the space, but the time to hang out there so that things can be processed. And when we go all the way in, we can move things around a little bit and make the move necessary to get the gremlin really retired for good. So I'm giving you these tools so that you can understand them and you can appreciate what is gonna be required, and you can do this immediately and see where you can get. But I want you to know that there's a deeper level available when you're ready for it, because some gremlins are loud enough, and the swatter alone won't do it. Some of them need to be traced all the way back and released at the root, and that's the work that I do in the soul power. When we enhance the divinity inside of you, that deeper sense of the awesome you, it will melt away, and it will transform the gremlins, and I've seen this over the 12 years I've been a coach. So you'll know when you're ready for it. Your gremlin will probably tell you that you're not, so swat that away also. So I want to talk to someone specific right now. I'm talking to the woman who has always suspected that the voice in her head is harder on her than it is on anyone else, who has watched her male colleagues walk into rooms with a confidence that you can't locate inside yourself. You weren't raised the same. And not because you're not more capable, you might be. You, in fact, according to the data, are. But because nobody ever handed you the same story or handed them the same story that you've gotten, you navigate the world in the work world differently. So I want to also talk to the woman who has done the work, checked the boxes, delivered the results, and still hears the voice that says, not yet, not enough, not quite. And I want you to hear this. The voice is not a reflection of reality, it's a recording. It was made somewhere else by someone else for reasons that had nothing to do with your actual capacity and everything to do with them. When my nursing colleagues, my first job, criticized how I got along with others, that was their problem. And they were either envious or jealous or too limited to acknowledge that what I was doing was actually had better results, was more accurate and more reliable because I was able to do things in less time. So those people out there, They were playing on their own limiting beliefs, and they imprinted it on you. And so you gotta not call this intuition. You gotta not call this following your gut. You gotta call this an old story that's running on a loop, and you can turn it off. And maybe not permanently, maybe not immediately, maybe you not need to do some more work, but you can learn it, recognize it, name it, evaluate it, and refuse it. You can stop giving it the authority. You can put it in its place. And so that voice is affecting your career and possibly personal relationships. So I want you to get on the other side of that because you're not the problem. It's just that how these things go, it makes you feel wrong. So here's the one thing to stop. Stop calling your gremlins your instincts or intuition or that following my gut feeling. By the way, your gut feeling is a fear response. The nervous system in the gut is telling you beware, beware, beware. It's not like the happy place you want to follow. So stop treating that voice that tells you to stay small as wisdom. It's not wisdom. It's an old recording and it's a fear recording and it's been trying to protect you, but from what? I don't know. So when the voice shows up, you name it again. That's not me. That's my gremlin. And my gremlin does not run this operation anymore. And here's the one thing to start. This week, I want you to do the exercise that Christine did. Get quiet in your car before bed, whenever you have 10 minutes, and ask yourself, whose voice is my inner critic? And now, what does it say? Whose voice is it? Sit with that question. Let the answer come. And when it does, write it down, name it, name her, name that person. And you might not have anything to do with that person right now. You may be like, why are they still taking up space? So just know it and just understand that that's not you. And here's your truth to carry forward this week. Your gremlin has never once told you the truth about your potential. It has told you the truth about someone else's fear that you took on and you believed, and someone else's ceiling. You know how many women I've coached who come from more humble beginnings than what their current situation is, and they feel bad about it? They feel almost like they're cheating on their family of origin because they might be holding back what they're really doing. But here's the thing, someone else's need to make you manageable in their eyes is not what you need to subscribe to. You don't have to play small. Like, you don't have to tell them everything. One of my biggest mistakes in my life was telling my best friend what my new salary was with a new promotion. She walked out of the restaurant. I was taking her to dinner. She walked out completely furious. I never saw her again. So sometimes people are not available for you to be the version that you want to be. So you have to be the woman who is delivering yourself, your true self, into the world and begin carrying that version of you forward. And imagine what you do when you put that gremlin down. You're not the problem. You never were. Enough already. We'll see you next time. It's Coach Mofall.
If today's episode hit home, share it with a woman who needs to hear it. Because the best thing we can do is make sure no woman sits alone in an experience that has a name. You've been listening to Enough Already. I'm Coach Mo Fall. Please subscribe and like and comment so this can be sent to more women just like you who needs to hear there is a different way. Take good care.